Hello ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the AgendaPal webinar today. We're going to be going through a detailed demonstration of the system. It's great to see so many people on the webinar. We're going to go ahead and jump right into the demonstration. As you may know, AgendaPal is a 100% hosted software as a service application. It sits there up in the cloud, so all you need is a supported web browser and an internet connection, and you can access it from anywhere. Here we are at the AgendaPal website. We simply click the login link and enter our credentials, then click the log on button to access our account. Now the first thing that I'd like to cover is really an overview of the AgendaPal home screen. This is a screen that your general users will be interfacing with quite a bit. So up at the top we basically have a recent item bar. This shows the 5 most recent items and meetings that we've been working in, so we can quickly jump back to them. On the left side here we see our command buttons. I am logged in as a general user, so I only have a couple of options. You'll see later on in the demonstration as I log in with users whose permissions are a little bit greater, we'll have more options there. On the right hand side we have our inbox, and this shows us all the tasks that are assigned to us in the system, the specific task name, which items they're associated to, and then also when they were assigned to us in the system. So today we're going to go through the typical process that most organizations when dealing with their meeting agendas must go through. First and foremost, you typically have people from various departments submitting agenda items. Those agenda items then have to be routed for approval before they can be placed on an agenda. So let's go ahead and assume that I am someone from a department in your organization and I need to submit an agenda item. To do this, first and foremost, we just come to the AgendaPal home screen and click the Add Item button. This will take us to the screen where we can then submit the item. Now the first thing we need to do is enter a name for the item. Now this isn't the name that will appear on the agenda. This is actually a name that's only used internally for the system. This being the case, we typically recommend that your users put in the name the date for the meeting that they'd like this item to appear on. So in this case we'll go ahead and say 10/19/2011. And then enter an internal name for the item. Then we move down to the agenda text area. The agenda text is basically a miniature version of Microsoft Word, and here you enter the text for this agenda item exactly as you want it to appear in the printed and published agenda. You can set your system to pretty much put any template in this area that you like in order to guide your users on how you want the information entered. So we'll go ahead and enter the information by first entering the agenda item title, specifying our purpose, and lastly providing our recommendation. Again, keep in mind how this looks is 100% customizable, and you can customize it any way you'd like. Also note that there is a spell checker available within this control here so that you can ensure the spelling of the agenda items and associated information is correct. Next, the user selects a meeting type. Basically, you need to define, is this for a city council meeting? Is this for a planning commission meeting? Again, with AgendaPal, you can have as many meeting bodies as you'd like in the system. You can enforce this or make it optional, but in our case, we're going to go ahead and specify that this item is for a regular city council meeting. So again, to recap, I've entered a name, entered some agenda text, how I want this item to appear in the agenda, select the meeting type, and then simply click the Submit button. AgendaPal will always provide you with confirmation whenever something is submitted successfully. Next, I can upload any supporting documents or attachments to this specific agenda item. To do this, we simply click the Upload New File button. In this case, I'd like to upload my PDF staff report. I have a PowerPoint presentation as well. and lastly, a draft resolution. I'm going to go ahead and refresh this item so I can show you a great feature in the AgendaPal system. For any supported file type that you upload, AgendaPal will automatically convert it to PDF. So note here my PowerPoint presentation or PPTX extension automatically converts to a PDF version, as well as my Word document as well. It's automatically converted to a PDF version. AgendaPal does this to make it easy for people in the review process just to view a file, where they can just simply view the PDF. If they need to make edits to the file, of course, they can view the original version, whether it's the PowerPoint or Word doc, for example. Now I'd like to cover some brief features within the file attachments control here. First and foremost, pretty obviously, you can delete any of the files by selecting the appropriate icon for the appropriate file. And secondly, you could choose whether you want to include that specific attachment to the agenda packet. By default, everything is included. However, let's assume that we have a situation where we need a file to travel with the item through the approval process. However, we don't want it to appear to the public on the agenda packet that we post to the web. So we would simply click on the Include in Packet button. It'll automatically change it to exclude. We see that there's an X there, so the staff report would not be included. But for purposes of our demonstration, we're going to go ahead and include all these files. We'll cover the history options and the actions option a little bit later in the presentation. So that's it. I have entered a name, provided some agenda text, and uploaded some attachments. That's all I need to do in AgendaPal to submit an item. I'll go ahead and click on the AgendaPal logo to come to my home screen. At this point, I can go ahead and log out of the system and go on about my business for the day. Now, AgendaPal has gone to work in the background. Basically, whenever an item is submitted, it'll automatically kick off a workflow approval process for the specific agenda item. Now, in our case, we put together a very simplistic workflow process. It basically goes to the city clerk initially with an option to kick back to the submitter for more information, or the ability to forward it to the city attorney for review. One key thing to remember is that the system is 100% customizable to whatever your process is. So in the background, the system automatically sent out an email as a reminder that you have a task to perform. So it tells us we have a task to perform, city clerk approval for the specific item, this 10-year plan to eliminate homelessness. We can go ahead and click the login link to access the page. We're already there. So we're going to go ahead and log in as our city clerk user. And we see here in our inbox, in fact, we have the city clerk approval task for that specific item, and it tells us when it was assigned. So I simply click on the item in the inbox, and it will take me to the item screen so I can act on the task. Now, when dealing with item approvals, we basically get the exact same screen that we had before. On the left side, we have the item information, we can edit it, we can view the documents, but we also have new information on the right. This is basically the task and workflow history. Again, this is completely customizable, but the system tells us exactly what we need to do. The task is city clerk approval, and it tells me to review the agenda item. If everything is in order, go ahead and select the approve action down here. But I could also send the item back to the submitter or forward it to the city attorney as well. In this case, let's go ahead and say, alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and perform the task. I'd like to view the staff report. And everything seems in order here. Maybe I'd also like to review the resolution. And perhaps I would like the city attorney to actually review the resolution here. So I'm going to go ahead and enter some notes. Select the appropriate action, in this case forward to the city attorney, and then submit my action. And again, it tells us that it was successfully submitted up at the top here. So now as the city clerk user, as you see here, I'm logged in as C. Rivers, my job's done with that specific item. I can go ahead, go on about my day, grab a cup of coffee, or do whatever I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and log out at this point and log back in as our city attorney user, because again, this item was forwarded to the city attorney. And here we see the specific task, city attorney review for a 10-year plan to eliminate homelessness item. So I simply click on the item, and it will take me to that specific item screen. Now note here, we have the instructions. It's been forwarded to me for review. Of course, I'm the city attorney in this case. And when I've completed my review or edits, we can go ahead and enter comments in the notes area, but it also tells us to take a look at the history area below. Every task in the system has a specific history that's recorded. So in this case, I see that the user Corey Rivers was performing the task City Clerk Approval. She took the action to forward to the city attorney, and basically it says, please review the resolution. All right, so I know exactly what I have to do. I can go ahead and click on the resolution to review it, and of course this is the PDF version that I'm viewing. Let's go ahead and say, yeah, you know what, there's a problem here. I need to go ahead and make some edits. I'm going to go ahead and close the file. If I want to make edits, I go ahead and click the checkout action for the specific file. So in this case, I want to edit the resolution. Note it's a Word document. I want to go ahead and check out the Word document so that I can make modifications to it. And the file will open in its native application. Again, in this case, Microsoft Word. Again, since we are in the native application, we could use track changes or any other features that Word has to offer. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and make a couple of changes. Maybe this estimate of 800 people is incorrect. It's actually 600 people. And maybe I need to add some text here. Now I don't have to complete my review of the document in one sitting. I can go ahead and save it anywhere I'd like on my computer. And then close the file, and I can work on it later if I'd like to. Now one thing to note is that AgendaPal has full revision control in the system. Since I've checked out this file as a city attorney, other users can view it, but they can't check it out to make modifications. Again, this is a feature to ensure that no two people are making modifications to a document at the same time, thereby overwriting each other's changes. So I could go ahead and go home for the night, work on that file tonight, maybe tomorrow, whenever, come back and basically upload the new version of the file. So as a city attorney, I'll go ahead and click this icon here. We're going to go ahead and upload the new version. And in the file list, it only appears as a single file here. We don't see the multiple versions of the file. And if I go ahead and refresh this item, you'll see that in fact it converts the new version to PDF as well, automatically in the background. Now this takes us to the history column. For any file, we can go ahead and click on the history icon and see the complete version history. So in this case, the user Abigail Johnson originally submitted the file when she created the agenda item at 11:23 a.m. and then user Andrei Pavlovich modified the version and basically uploaded it at 11:37. So we have a complete version history. However, if users click on the version here, they'll always get the latest version. We give you the ability to pull a previous version at any time if for any reason you need to make modifications. So we'll go ahead and close our version history here and proceed with the task. So now I'm going to go ahead and enter some notes here and then take the appropriate action. In this case, we only have one option. I'm sending it back to the city clerk. We simply submit our action, and then of course we go on about our day. Now in this case, I'm going to go ahead and log out of the system and log back in as our city clerk user. And again in our inbox, we'll see that it's back to the city clerk approval and this task has looped back to us. So we'll go ahead and click it, and basically it takes us to that same screen that we've seen before. As I mentioned previously, every task is logged in the history, so we can actually take a look and see, okay, the city attorney made some modifications to the language of the resolution. Now I could go ahead and act on the task accordingly. Here again in our sample workflow, which is 100% customizable to your organization, we have the ability to approve it, and that would be the last step. It's okay to be placed on the agenda. And of course, I could send it back to the submitter potentially for additional information. But for purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and say we're going to approve it. In this case, we don't need any notes. I'll go ahead and submit that action. And in this case, we see the confirmation. And in fact, we've completed the workflow approval process for that specific item. Now, any item that has completed the process, we can simply click on it, we can view it, and the screen changes slightly. On the right-hand side, we won't see any task information because the workflow is complete. We just see the history and exactly when it was finally approved for placement on an agenda. So to recap the first portion of the demonstration, we added an item, we entered a basic name and some text for the agenda and uploaded some files, routed it for workflow, and again, we've only been dealing with two screens, the home screen that you see here, and of course the item screen that contains both the item information and the workflow. For your average users that will be submitting agenda items and working within the workflow process, this is absolutely everything they need to see in the system. So there's really not much to learn to get them using the system. Now we'll walk through the next stage of the process, and this is typically something that the office manager, the clerk to the board, anybody who's involved in the actual generation of the agenda would really be performing in the system. The first thing we need to do is basically calendar meetings, and in most cases this is typically a one-time process that you do at the beginning of the year or maybe quarterly, for example. To do this, we simply click the Create Meeting button, and it takes us to a very, very straightforward screen. We select the meeting type, we enter a venue, specify a meeting time. In this case, we'll go ahead and say it is 6:30 p.m. And then we can create a single meeting. We can create a weekly recurrence or monthly recurrence. For most organizations, maybe they meet the first Monday of every month or the first and third Monday of every month. We could select a specified date range, maybe the entire year, for example, to calendar all those meetings. So we'd simply click Create Meeting. Let's say it's the first and third. We'd go ahead and specify now we want the third for that date range, Create Meeting, and that's it. So basically we've calendared meetings in our system. Now, when we're ready to start working on the agenda for a specific meeting, we basically just need to pull up that meeting within our meeting details screen. To do this, simply click on the meeting list. This shows us a list of all meetings. In this case, I'm only showing future meetings. We have a regular city council meeting here. Click on the link and it'll take us to that meeting screen. Now, I'd like to walk through this screen just to explain a few things. First and foremost, on the left-hand side, we have our meeting details. It tells us what type of meeting, the date and time of the meeting, the venue for the meeting, and again, this is just so we can report it to the public, just in case you have different venues. Then below, we basically have our meeting structure. This is the order of business. This is our sections and any items that we have assigned to this specific meeting. So in our example, we've created a template for a basic set of sections, and we've already assigned some items to this specific meeting. But our sections are the little yellow icons here, the call to order, roll call, invocation, etc., etc. And the little paper icons are basically the items that have been assigned to those sections. So more or less, this is an outline of our meeting. This is 100% customizable. You could do it yourself, but as part of the AgendaPal service, we do it for you. So again, creation of these templates, it's very straightforward, but again, we will do it for you as part of your service. Down below, we have the meeting output. In this case, we haven't created any output yet, so nothing exists there, and we'll get to that later. On the right side of the screen, we see the item list. And the item list is basically a bucket of unassigned items, or items that have not yet been assigned to a meeting. And here we see the internal item name, whether that's approved or not, and also what type of meeting they're intended for. So what's the process here? Well, very simple. We simply take items from the unassigned list and assign them to the specific meeting. To do this, we first need to click the Edit button, so we're editing the meeting. And over in the item list, we select the items that we'd like to add. So in this case, I want to select a couple of items. First, I'm going to click our labor negotiations, and I'm going to hold down my Control key so I can multi-select. And I'd also like to select the conference with the real property negotiators. Both of these items need to be placed into our closed session. So I'm going to go ahead and select Closed Session, and then simply click Add to Meeting. And automatically those items are moved from the unassigned list over to the closed session. And we can continue this process for all the items that we'd like to add to this specific meeting, in this case on the 11th of October. So here there's a recognition or a proclamation that we want to add to the presentations and proclamations. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, add that over. And lastly, I would like to add into our new business our 10-year plan to eliminate homelessness. If you've accidentally made a mistake, not an issue at all. You can easily take an item and unassign it from a meeting or remove it, and it dumps it back into the list here. Let's go ahead and add that item back. Again, fire department staffing, we want it in new business. We'll go ahead and add it to the meeting. Now we can reorder any of the items or sections in the meeting simply by dragging and dropping. Let's assume that our fire department staffing item actually needs to appear in the old business, not in new business. So we'll go ahead and simply drag, drop, and there we have it in its new location. Let's go ahead and move up and say, you know what, this approve and file checks item in the consent calendar should be the first item in the consent calendar as far as order is concerned. And let's go ahead and say our strategic plan update actually doesn't need to be in presentations and proclamations, but it needs to be in public hearings. So we simply drag and drop to resort any of the items, any of the sections in the entire meeting. Now once you've completed adding items and sorting the order that they'll appear on the agenda in the meeting, we basically can click the Save button to save the specific order of business. Now if you recall earlier, we had specific agenda text, exactly how each item's text will appear within the agenda. And we can review that simply by clicking on the name of the item rather than the actual icon. And here on the right side, we'll see the same screen that we've seen before. Again, we can click on any of these items and we'll see the information. We can make edits to the agenda text here at any time. Note that there are no numbers applied to the agenda items as of yet. This will actually happen in the next step because, again, the order can change, and it's not until we create the agenda that those numbers are applied. Just as with our agenda items, each section has specific text that will be pulled into the agenda. Again, this is part of the configuration that we set up for you, but again, each section is editable. For instance, roll call, who are the council members, that can be updated, edited at any time within your template. So let's assume that we are ready. Everything's in order. The text is exactly how we want it to appear on the agenda, and we're ready to go ahead and create the agenda. Well, to do that, we need to click the Edit button and simply click the Meeting Output button, which will take us to the Meeting Output screen. Now, the Meeting Output screen, again, we try to make it as straightforward as possible. Ease of use is a huge priority to us at AgendaPal. The left side of the screen contains a step-by-step process to basically go through the meeting output document creation, your agenda, your packet, and of course your minutes. Here, create the agenda is the first step. Note that it's orange, meaning we can do it. Anything that's gray can't be done yet. So we simply click Create Agenda, and it gives us exact instructions. It hasn't been created yet, so we go ahead and click the Create Agenda button to create it. Now the system tells us it's working in the background, and automatically, with nothing happening on your machine, the system's going to create it in the cloud. It's automatically assembling that agenda for you. So again, single-click agenda creation in your format. Typically, it will take anywhere between 30 seconds and 3 minutes for the agenda to be created. However, you don't need to sit here and watch the system. You could go on about your day, do other things, because you will get an email notification from the system whenever any job you submit is completed. So in this case, when our agenda actually has been created, we'll get a notification from the system. And here we see an email notification coming through. It tells us exactly what meeting output document, in this case it's the agenda. So we can go ahead, jump back into the meeting output screen, and we see that the green step now, create agenda, that's already occurred. We can recreate it if necessary, but in this case we're going to go to the next step, the next orange step in this case, edit confirm agenda. Get some detailed instructions here. Basically the whole goal of AgendaPal is single-click agenda creation. However, if you need to make any modifications to the agenda, it basically provides you an opportunity here where we can actually view the word agenda. In this case, it's a Microsoft DocX file. Simply click on the link and it will open it in Microsoft Word. Now here we see our agenda output in our format. And again, we have some pretty unique numbering schemes here. For our closed session, the agenda items are numbered CS, 1, 2, 3, etc. The numbering resets for presentations and proclamations. Again, we see P1, P2, P3, P4. And then also our consent calendars where we start our standard numbering. Consent calendar on throughout the rest of the sections. we basically see just numbered 1 through n. So here in the consent calendar, items 1 through 4, public hearings, item 5, 6, 7, 8, etc. Again, the numbering scheme, virtually any numbering scheme that you could imagine could be created. So in this case, we could make any last-minute edits if we'd like to, but again, the whole purpose is single-click agenda creation with AgendaPal. So in this situation, we're just going to go ahead and say, hey, it looks great. We're going to go ahead and close the file and click on the Confirm Agenda button. If I did want to make any modifications, I could upload the modified Microsoft Word agenda document, but in this case, we don't want to. It looks great. Simply click Confirm Agenda, and the system goes back to work. When we confirm an agenda, basically the system just converts that Word file to a PDF. And we'll see here on the meeting details screen that in fact down in the meeting output we see that there is the PDF agenda available in the system. However, the little globe with the X on it says that it hasn't been published to the public yet. Now anywhere that we see the meeting information, whether it's the meeting details screen, we'll be able to see what meeting output was generated. We can also see that in the meeting list, whether the documents have been created and in fact whether they're published. And if we're ever in the system and want to see the output, simply click on the PDF icon and it will load. So here's our PDF agenda in our format. Everything's looking great so far. So we're going to go ahead and jump back to the meeting detail for that specific meeting. And now we want to move forward and create our agenda packet. So once again, back to our meeting output screen. And from the meeting output screen, we basically have the option to create the agenda packet. Again, green's been done, gray can't be done yet, orange is the current step. We click on that and we have a number of options. Now, at AgendaPal, we take a unique approach when it comes to the agenda packet. Specifically, we basically assemble the packet for you such that it could be accessed from any platform whatsoever. Let's say Councilmember A wants a printed version, Councilmember B wants to use their iPad, Councilmember C wants to use a PC, maybe another one uses a Mac, maybe another one uses an Android device. It really doesn't matter because we'll create a single file PDF agenda packet and it will look the same regardless how you deliver it. That single file agenda packet is basically the first however number of pages of the PDF are the agenda, and then after that, all of the supporting documents for each item in the order that they appear in the agenda. Now there's a couple of options that we have here. Some of them we typically recommend. First and foremost, this option includes a separator page at the beginning of the supporting documents for each item. This will become evident when we actually see the packet later, just so we know where the supporting documents for one file start or one item start and where they end. Next, do we want to add overall page numbers or bait stamping to the packet? This is very important. We always recommend this. You could specify the location where you want it. In this case, we'll put it in the lower middle, and we want the format just page then the number of the actual page. This is important because, again, some people might be using electronic versions, some people might be using paper versions. But the key thing is, everybody will be referencing the same information. All of those attachments that you attach to those specific files, or sorry, the specific items, they may have their own page numbering scheme. We want one overall page number so that Councilmember A could say, I'm looking at page 485 of the packet, rather than saying, I'm looking at item 3, attachment 4, paragraph 6 of page 28. Obviously makes it a lot easier to work. So once we specify the options, we simply click Create Agenda Packet, and again, the system goes back to work. Based upon how many file attachments you have and everything, could take a couple of minutes for the packet to create. And again, you will always receive an email whenever the meeting output document is created. And there we see the email notification, in fact informing us that the packet is complete. So we'll jump back to our meeting detail, and in fact down in the meeting output we see now that we have our agenda packet. Now let's review our agenda packet by clicking on the PDF icon within the meeting output pane. Here we see our agenda packet in PDF, and of course I've expanded the page view here in Acrobat just so we can see which page we're on. Now note here automatically it has applied the Bates numbering. In this case it'll from page 1 of the packet to page N, put the appropriate page numbers so we exactly can reference a certain page regardless of what format we're looking at this, whether it's printed, whether it is electronic copy, it really doesn't matter. Now, if you are responsible for the agendas, again, there's no more collating agenda packets. You don't need to print out the agenda, then every supporting document, then collate them and put them in a binder. If somebody absolutely insists on a printed copy, which of course we don't recommend, we prefer everybody go paperless, but we understand that there are situations where somebody wants a printed copy. You simply print this from page 1 to page n, the entire document, it's already collated for you. You never need to do anything further. Note also, we automatically link, for those people that want to use an electronic copy, the specific attached material or the associated files for each agenda item. As you can see here, all of our items that have attached information have a hyperlink for their number. So note here I'm on page 5. I'd like to jump to the supporting documents for this 10-year plan to eliminate homelessness item. I simply click on that link and it takes me directly to the first page where that begins. In this case, page 111. And here is an example. Again, it's fully optional, but this is that separator sheet I referred to before. It basically says this is where the backup material for this agenda item begins. And then, of course, I could scroll through. In this case, we had a presentation attached. Note that the Bates numbering is also applied to the presentation, regardless what files we're dealing with. We'll go ahead and scroll down a bit further. We could see with this specific agenda item, we also have our staff report and resolution, and everything's there. And if we ever need to jump back to the first page, just simply hit the home key on your keyboard. It'll take you back to the first page. And if you have the appropriate tools, you can of course take annotations directly within the context of the agenda packet, just as you would write on a paper agenda packet. And again, this is completely platform independent. If you have an iPad, an Android tablet, a Mac, a PC, it doesn't matter. You can go paperless with this format. So our agenda packet looks good. We'll go ahead and close this and move on with the next step. Now the next step in the process is basically publishing the agenda and/or packet to the web. Now typically you would have to pull all the files, maybe scan a copy of the packet and forward it off to your web developer so they can go ahead and make it available to the public and/or your council or commissioners so they can actually pull it up and view it. Well, it's never been easier than with AgendaPal. We simply jump back to the meeting output screen. Now note we have a couple of options available. Obviously, publishing of your agenda and packet is optional, so you can jump directly to create minutes, but in this case we want to walk through the process of publishing your packet. In this case, we'll click that button, and on the right we see we can view the PDFs right here from this screen as well if we'd like to. It tells us currently the agenda is unpublished. We simply click that button to publish it. That's it. It's been published, and we'll do the same for our agenda packet. Whenever you publish any meeting output in AgendaPal, it's automatically made available on a page that basically faces the public. Everything we've seen so far is only available if you have a login to the system. Automatically upon publishing, the system will make those files available to a page that looks just like your website, but that's hosted on the AgendaPal system. So all you need to do is one time have your webmaster point an agenda and minutes link to the specific URL we give you, and you have all the information available there. Now let's take a look at one of these sample publish pages. These pages are hosted on the AgendaPal cloud service. However, we configure them for you to look exactly like your website. So here we have the city of anywhere. All of the information around here is simply stripped from your existing website, so it looks and feels exactly the same. The only thing that we add dynamically is basically the table that we see here. We see the meetings, the venue for the meeting, the date, time, and of course, as they become available, the agenda, the packet, and eventually the minutes. So for example, if I'm Joe Public or Joe Commissioner, I simply come to this public-facing page, click on the packet icon, for example, and there we have the full agenda packet. So again, to recap, 100% automated publishing of your agenda packet and later on the minutes in a format that looks identical to your existing website. Let's jump back to the AgendaPal client and move forward. So far, we've shown you how to dramatically streamline the process of submitting items, writing them for approval, and of course, creation of your agenda and agenda packet. Now, meeting time has come along and we're ready to take minutes. So to do this, we need to jump back into the meeting details screen for the specific meeting we're looking for. Click the edit button, and in this case, since we've already created output, it tells us a warning. You've already created output for the meeting. If you edit the meeting, we'll have to recreate and or republish any meeting output. Oh well, we're not going to go ahead and remove items from the meeting or anything because we're just going to jump in and create minutes. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. We're not too concerned about that warning. We'll jump back to the meeting output screen. And now we're at the steps where we're ready to create our minutes. We will go ahead and click the Create Minutes button. And on the right hand side, we have some instructions. Basically, before we can create the minutes document, we actually have to take or edit the minutes. So we go ahead and click that button. And it takes us to a screen that looks very similar to the meeting detail screen that we saw earlier. Now you can access this screen during the meeting, after the meeting, or both. Again, you're not required to complete everything during the meeting. However, you may want to get a start on everything live within the meeting. You may also choose to just take your summary minutes or notes in Microsoft Word. It really doesn't matter. Again, you can come to this screen at any time, and it works in a very similar fashion as we had earlier in our meeting details screen when we were prepping for the agenda. Here, for example, we could select any item and it will load on the right hand side. Automatically, the agenda text is copied over. Some organizations have the agenda text duplicated in the minutes, some prefer to erase it. In our example, we're going to go ahead, click the edit button, and we'll go ahead and just add our minutes below. So you can type up the minutes exactly as it appears. Again, we'll record the minutes here, the motions, the votes, etc., and then simply click the Save button. And we can go ahead and do this for each of these items. Let's go ahead for our Community Facilities District item. Again, we click Edit. We can go ahead, enter the meeting information or the minutes information. And then go ahead, click the Save button to save that minute information. Another great feature of AgendaPal is the ability to reorder the items or the sections to reflect the order that they are actually taken in the meeting. For example, we may have a specific order of business in the agenda. However, this fire department staffing item, old business, was actually taken after the Community Facilities District item. So I'm going to go ahead and just move it below. However, once we actually create the minutes, the system's smart enough as an option, if you'd like, to keep the original numbering from the agenda. So you know exactly what the original numbers are. Those appear flipped in this case for the specific minutes document. And again, let's say I took some minutes during the meeting. I'm going to jump back to the meeting output screen. Note here, if I select Create Minutes, I have the option to create the minutes document at this point, which I can do. Or I could jump back and, of course, finalize, finish the editing on the minutes at any time. Again, all the information saved in the cloud in your account, so again, you can return to it at any time. When you are ready, you simply click the Create Minutes button, and the same process as before. The system goes to work in the background. You go grab a cup of coffee, and you'll get an email notification anywhere between about 30 seconds and 3 minutes that the minutes document has been created. Then we simply jump back to the meeting output, and just like with the agenda, we have the option to edit and confirm the minutes. Here we can go ahead and make any last-minute edits to the minutes by viewing and editing the Word version. Here we'll go ahead and quickly review. And we in fact see old business, item number 7 actually now appears before item number 6, and again we see that the minutes were recorded. In this case, we don't want to make any modifications, so we'll simply close the file and click the Confirm Minutes button to convert those minutes to a PDF format. We will then jump back to our meeting details screen, and we see that the minutes document is available. Your agenda and minutes and packet format is, again, 100% customizable. For us to set that up for you, it's all included in the price, and of course we provide the tools that you can do it yourself as well if you prefer. However, since the service is free from AgendaPal, most people take advantage of letting us set up everything as far as configuration is concerned for you. Note here, anywhere that you do see meeting output information, whether it's in this screen or the meeting list screen, you see we have checkboxes next to the agenda and packet on the globe there. It tells us that it is published to the internet, and minutes has not yet been published. So let's go ahead, click the meeting output button, and jump to our last step, which is publish the minutes. We'll go ahead and publish, and now that document is available to the public on the internet. Here we'll take a look at our published page, and in fact, there we see them. We have the minutes. Simply click it to view it, and again, this is the page that is available outside of the system to the public. And here they can review the minutes, and of course, we only took minutes on a couple of items here just for purposes of this demonstration, but we see all the information is available. Again, the structure, how everything looks, is 100% customizable and basically will mimic your existing format pretty much identically in most cases, or very, very similarly in rare cases. So let's recap. We showed you the process of adding items and, of course, automatically routing them for approval. We also showed you the process of calendaring meetings, and then of course assigning items to meetings, and also the ability with a single click to create your agenda packet, publish them to the internet, later take your minutes, create that automatically, and also publish those as well. Now just a brief note on some of the other tools available in AgendaPal. Obviously we give you the ability to define your own workflow processes, define your own meeting templates, and how the output will look. All of that is also included in our service, as I mentioned earlier. So again, with that monthly cost that you pay for the system, everything is made available to you, but the service is also included, so we can do it for you if you prefer. From a user perspective, the system manages users automatically, so password resets and everything. You never have to bother any staff member whatsoever to reset passwords. Users can do that on their own. So pretty much that concludes the presentation today. Again, I'd like to thank everybody. If you haven't already done so, take a look at our website at AgendaPal.com. We're a completely transparent organization. You get to see our demonstrations and see our pricing without really providing anything to us, unlike many organizations out there. Furthermore, from a pricing perspective, as I mentioned, it's basically a monthly fee. What differentiates us from pretty much any offering out there is the fact that we offer our system for a free trial for 30 days, completely configured with your agendas and workflow processes. And after that, if you decide to use AgendaPal, you pay that monthly fee, which includes all support, all maintenance, all configuration, new versions, etc., etc. And you can cancel at any time. So it's basically completely risk-free. And pretty much any client that we've worked with has seen an immediate return on investment because there is no long-term contract. Free for 30 days. If you use it a month or two and decide you want to go elsewhere, not an issue, simply cancel. And we basically give you back all of your data. We appreciate everybody that was on the webinar today, and if anyone has any questions whatsoever, please feel free to contact us. At this point, I'll go ahead and open up the phone lines for any questions.